All right, in this video we are going to talk about events in JavaFX. With graphical user interface programs like we've been talking about with JavaFX, the main programming paradigm is event-driven programming. And that's opposed to procedural programming, which is for the most part, what we've been doing previously. So event-driven programming is when the flow of the program is determined by the actions of a user. So the user clicks on a mouse button or presses a key on the keyboard, and there could be many other things. Those are the two main ones that we will be dealing with in this class. But it could be anything from sensor outputs, if you're talking about a control system for some mechanical device, or messages from other programs or threads, if you're talking about, say, like network programming. All right, and so something generated by an external source, right? An external source performs some action, right? That action generates an event in your program, and then your program is going to handle that event and react to it, okay? Whereas before, with procedural programming, basically we were just sort of kind of telling the computer, okay, just follow these steps, do this first thing, and then do this next thing, and so on and so forth. So that's the main difference that we're talking about here with these JavaFX programs. So an event is an action or occurrence recognized by a program, and like I mentioned before, it usually originates from some external environment. For us, it's going to be the user who's using the program. Okay, so your program has to react, right, to that event generated by the user, and so make some kind of response to it. So GUI programs have what's called an event loop. And that loop is just a loop that's going to constantly be running in your program, and it's going to be sitting there, and its sole job is to watch for those events, okay? And those events then are going to be noticed by this event loop, and then the code that responds to that event is going to be executed, all right? And so responding to an event is called event handling. All right, so we are in this first video here, we are going to talk about the button control and the action event class. All right, and so when you have that button control in your program and the user clicks on that button, an action event object will be generated. Okay, so that's what happens, and then the event loop is going to detect that action event that's been generated. And then what you are going to do in order to handle that action event is you are going to tell Java about a method that needs to be called when that control, in this case a button, generates an action event. Okay, and so that method, the way you would do that is with the setOnAction method that's in the button object. So let's say you have a button in your program called button, right? And then you want a method, you have a method that will handle the action event that's generated. Then what it would be is button.setOnAction. And then here you see I have a little lambda expression, right, that we talked about in previous videos and sections. So that lambda method will say, hey, take that event that's generated and pass it to this method. Okay. All right, and so then inside of your program, then you would have a method, define this method, right, and then that method would do whatever it is that needs to be done, okay, in your program. All right, so let's take a look at a very, very simple example, this button action event. First example.java. All right. So everything here is as we have shown in the previous videos, right? The intro videos and the layout videos. There's nothing that's new here other than we need this import for action event, right? The action event class. When the user clicks on the button, it's going to generate this action event. All right, and then so the class header is exactly the same, right? No changes there. All of our JavaFX classes are going to extend application. At least the main class is going to extend the application class. And then, of course, to do that, what we need to have is this start method, right? It's abstract in application, so we have to provide our own implementation for that. And in this case, the root pane is a border pane. Here I create a button. All right, and then now here is an example where I am setting the handler for that button. Okay, so I called my button, so I have button.setOnAction, and here I have this lambda expression. Okay, all right, and so this one is about as simple as I could possibly get it. Okay. Here I am just calling this method display message. Okay, and this, you can see this method is very, very simple. All it does is print this message, the button was clicked, and it actually prints it in the console, which is something you would probably never really do. Okay, because if this is a GUI program, well then the user's not going to be able to see the console like we're seeing it because we're the developers. All right. So that's probably something you would never do. I just wanted to make this example as simple as I could possibly get it. Okay? And so that sets the action. Anytime this button is now clicked, right, then it's going to print the button was clicked down here in the console. All right, everything else is the same as in the previous sections that we talked about. Here I put the button in the center of the border pane. I use that border pane root to create a new scene object. I tell the stage to show that scene that I just created, set the title, and then I show the message. So show the stage. All right, so let's compile this. And here's what I get. Okay, so just a single button in there. I'm going to click on it, right? And because I have set this action right here, set on action, right? That's going to generate an event when I click on it. That event, because of this lambda expression, is going to trigger this display message method to run. Okay, and so you can see when I click on it, right down here, I get the button was clicked, and if I start spamming it, right, you can see that every time I click, right, that message is getting displayed down there. All right, so now my button is triggering an action in here. So now the buttons we can actually use those to do things. All right, so just a couple of overall things I need to say about this. These JavaFX programs that we are writing so far are very, very simple, right? And if you notice, we are cramming all of the code into one class. We will find, though, that as things get more and more complicated, that's really not what we want to do. So eventually, as things get more and more complicated, we're going to start separating out some of this code. Okay, we're going to be taking this code out and some of this other code as well. So don't, some people when they see these first examples, they kind of latch onto that and they never progress sort of to the next level, and that's going to make it really, really difficult when you start writing more and more complicated GUI programs. So just remember that's kind of where we're headed, because these methods and these things that we're writing here are very basic. We can put the code into one class, and it's not that big of a deal. But in the end, we're going to start separating some of these things out. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. All right, that is it on this one.